to the words.
עדיין,
But
קשה לזכור איך לבטא את זה, כאילו, אני יכולה לזכור מילה אם אני אשתמש בה נגיד ביום, אם אני אשתמש בה ביום יום, אתה מבין?
That's part of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
כן, אז זה קשה מאוד להגיד את זה אם אני לא אבטא את זה נכון גם.
I agree. So you need to know what the word sounds like, right? Maybe even write it in phonetic Hebrew, right? In nikud mamash. But listen to it. That's why I told you about Merriam-Webster. That's why I told you about morphics. So you guys need to know this. I had something to tell you. I'm sorry?
Why is it special?
Oh, okay. I will. Not just me. Yeah.
אני התחלתי לעבוד עם מרים ובסטר, עם האתר שלה, והוא קצת בעייתי, כי הוא סוחף אותי יותר מדי לעומק. הפירושים שם יותר קשים מהמילים אז אתה נכנס למטה ולמטה ולמטה ואתה נאבד.
That's a good point. Instead, if you want, on Google, right, what you can do is, if you can, you guys with me? So you can do that on the search page, or on Chrome you can simply do it from the address bar. So you can type in define and then colon, right? אז אם אני אומר define בנקודותיים, and then for example I say Tarragon, right? Then it's going to give you what you need quickly, and it's nicer than Merriam-Webster. Do you see that it's nicer? Merriam-Webster, they take the word and break it down, and these are the same font size as those, so it's kind of difficult to get oriented. Here they tell you paragon. It's a noun. It's a person or thing regarded as a perfect example of a particular quality. That's exactly what we said about Messi. That's what we said about Michael Jordan. Person or thing viewed as a model of excellence. Model, a role model. Got it? So if you want, you can also use this. If you want, you can also use this. And you also have...
בגוגל.
It's כן, אם אתה הולך לכל גוגל ואת אומרת, לכל גוגל search bar and you say define נקודותיים. And then it gives you the word. When you key in a very difficult word, it would also give you the definition of that word, right, immediately. But if you were to key in some of the easier words, for example, mitigate, then it's not going to know whether you're looking for something that has to do with that word or the very definition of that word. So I would recommend simply use define, nekudotayim, and the word that you're using. If you feel like, I like Merriam-Webster. But if you feel that Merriam-Webster is too hardcore for you, then this is one step back. Morphics is 2 steps back. No disrespect. Well, maybe just a little bit disrespect. So, this is what I owe you from the previous lesson. I'll tell you after the break why the lesson is slightly important. Yeah, this is reading. Yeah. No, because I want to catch up. I want us to catch up.
לא, זה לא עושה אותו דבר.
Pardon? It doesn't?
בואי זה רושם לי ככה.
רק כי זה אייפון.
מה זה?
אני רק במחשב.
מה
זה?
10?
מה זה 10?
לא, היא כן מחפשת בגוגל וזה לא מחפשת. Now, quiet please. Quiet please. So, for the past couple of weeks, I've been asking you guys to solve a lot of homework. I've asked you guys to solve 2 full tests up until now, if I'm not mistaken. Or are we
Yes.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, 2. And if you did it, you saw that probably for a non-native English speaker, probably one of the biggest issues is time vis-a-vis the reading comprehension passage. Vis-a-vis, write it down, vis-a-vis. Beyachas le, relating to, regarding. What is vis in Latin? It's a panim, panim. So panim and mul panim. Beyachas le. So those of you who are also my TOEFL students, even though this very complicated word, juxtapose, juxtapose. פה עשינו את זה?
לא, סליחה, מה זה?
לא. juxtapose זה תרשמו לגבי זה? מישהו יודע? somebody who wasn't?
אני לא זוכרת. ג'קסטפוז זה גם משהו כזה, לא?
To compare, exactly. להציב זה ליד זה על מנת להשוות. So it's kind of similar. So it's a difficult word, by the way. On a scale of 0 to 10, where the average words that you see on the SATs are about a 6, 6.5, where the average person on the street, on the American street, can speak at around a level of a 5. This is about a 7, 6.5. Yeah, this is about a 7.
אז למה זה מופיע באמת בטופל?
It's one of the most difficult words on the TOEFL, not to mention the fact that on the TOEFL, they want to check to see whether you're capable of understanding an unfamiliar word based on the context. So they would give you almost a word that it's almost impossible, but based on the context, you will know what that is. However, if it shows up on the SATs as part of the answer choices for a sentence completion question, you don't have a context. Got it? So even though the same word can show up both on the SATs and on the TOEFL, it's going to be in completely different contexts. Exactly. להעמיד זה ליד זה על מנת להשוות. להציב זה ליד זה על מנת להשוות. It's a fancy, nice word. Do you know that word? I'm sorry?
You say juxtapose?
Juxtapose.
It's so weird, so I think I remember it.
Good.
אני זוכרת שאני מכירה אותם, אבל לא מה
So talk, speak, use it. If I were to juxtapose my learning habits when I was 14 with my learning habits when I was 18, there's no question about it. I'm much more serious now. I'm assuming that.
ראיתי את המילה מנדיין, ואז ככה...
la, fantastic. What is mundane? מונדו זוכרים? מונדיין? של העולם, שגרתי, מה זה?
זה היה בסרט בחירתה של סופי, ואמרתי לי, כן,
From here? Because we talked. Good. And it's a nice word, and we even took it. We talked about quotidian, which is about a 9 word. It's one of the most difficult words, right? But you even, again, if you know something, routine, regular, so it's routine is like 4, regular is slightly, regular, routine, and then mundane, and then, quotidian. But all of these mean slightly, things that are slightly similar. Quiet, please. Quiet, please. So this is something I was actually supposed to teach you last time, but I wanted to solve as many quantitative questions with you guys. So that's why I got pushed back. One of the main issues is time. We don't have, most of us don't have a lot of time. And the passages, difficult passages. I mean, these are academic level passages, no question about it, right? Definitely bachelor's degree. So we need to have some kind of a good method of going about solving these, and that's exactly what we're going to do now. I wanted you guys to do the best that you can, but now let's take it up a notch. So first of all, the questions. We're talking about, remember, we have reading, writing, and math, right? Each of them has how many sections on the examination? 3. And 1, so altogether on the examination you have 10 passages, 10 sections. Why is that? Because another section is going to be an experimental section, exactly. A pilot section, what we call in Hebrew pilot section, right? Yeah. So, is in the באנגלית test pilot, אבל בדרך כלל כאן לא יגידו pilot section. They would say experimental section.
Pilot trip.
I'm sorry?
Pilot trip.
What's a pilot trip?
Yeah.
What is that?
When you're coming to make Aliyah, you come for a trip before it.
Yeah, so who named it? Israelis named it. So that's why it's called a pilot trip. But it's not, I was shocked because I thought you were going to tell me, no, pilot is actually experimental also in American English, when to the best of my knowledge, it's not. Okay, so all told, we have 3 sections on this examination. We have one 25-minute section. Forget about the actual breakdown. What I want you guys to feel is that you have about 16 questions out of 24. Here you have about 19 questions out of 24. Here you have about 14 questions out of 20, right? So that's a huge amount of questions. We're talking about 70% of reading score. Got it? So that is about 200 to 800 out of that range of 600 points. This is worth to you about 70% of that 600 points. So that is 420 points that have to do strictly with how quickly you read and how well you understand what you read. Got it? So that's huge. That's huge. Only this. So we really need to be talking about something that's, that's efficient and effective here. So, please write down that you have about a minute and 15 seconds per question, about around there, if you break it down. And today we're also going to talk about sentence completion, by the way. We're also going to talk, well, it's a shame that she's not here today, that's how it's not here. It's a shame that she's missing today. Yeah, you have the page, right? So you can write on the page itself, you can write in your notebook. You really want me to tell you where to write? No. Yeah, but I do want you guys to highlight things. You know? That's the highlight. Yes. Sometimes you have two small interrelated critical reading passages that will appear first, and usually, but not always, the questions are arranged by the passage's content. The questions are arranged by, usually, not always, the questions are arranged by the passage's content. So what I would ask you guys to do now is please open it on page 167. Open your textbook, the McGraw-Hill, open it on page 167.
Just a side note, a pilot in a TV show.
I'm sorry?
A pilot in a TV show.
TV shows, yeah. I did see that, yeah. Yeah, but it's a TV pilot, yeah, it's yeah, it's not, there's also a test pilot, right? But, yeah, I see what you're right, in the specific context of, yeah, you're right. Forgot about that. And I love watching pilots, there are named pilots, but. So, page 167. So here, listen, if you have enough time, if you want, you can review what they say, but remember, McGraw-Hill, even though I think it's really the best book of its kind in the world, it's still not a perfect book, and sometimes they are a bit long-winded. What does it mean, long-winded? Exactly, so I think this is slightly too long-winded. If you want, you can review it, it's up to you guys. But basically what you have here is a breakdown of critical reasoning. I think, and I did go through this in detail thoroughly, I think that it's I mean, come on. I mean, if you have a brain, then you do many of the adjustments that they ask you automatically. Obviously, if you have what is the meaning of the word, then you know what the question means. So you don't have to learn this over, across 4 different pages, which is exactly what's happening here. So if you want at home, and that's really, really optional, on McGraw-Hill, that's going to be pages 165 through, and I'm going to put these in parentheses because some of the pages I'm not going to ask you guys to do, some of the pages I will be asking you guys to do, to complete. Starting today, by the way, you have more homework per session. Yes.
אין זמן.
I know the older women would have beat you anyhow, so forget about that, concentrate on
לא מצחיק, אני רואה חתך לי בצבא.
טוב מאוד.
של חודשיים.
טוב מאוד.
באמת?
כן.
טוב?
מעולה.
מתי?
אני צריכה לעשות כאילו 2 סאבג'קט, אז אני חייבת...
את לא נורמלי.
השן הולכת אותי מהמוח.
אני לא מאמינה שלקחת לך, זה טעות.
די, נו, שציין את המבחנים האלה. נראה את מה יקרה, תפתח את זה שוב פעם.
So, if you take a look at page 195, right? So on your handouts, right, on your worksheets, it reads that sometimes the 2 small interrelated critical reasoning passages will appear first. So that's what you have here. Passage number 1 and passage number 2. Now, I want to be very specific. If you have 2 critical reasoning passages that are combined, what I would usually ask you guys to do is, unlike the other things, the other method that I will show you, which is very, very reasonable, by the way, I will ask you to simply read both first. Got it? When you have one critical reasoning passage, I would ask you to do something slightly different, right? But if you have, everybody sees it on page 195, Amud 95, everybody sees that you have passage number 1 and passage number 2. What I want you guys to do is to read both of them, and obviously, always, regardless of this, always work inside the booklet. Work inside the booklet. In other words, the booklet is yours. Nobody's going to check it. If we have 5 senses in which we glory, senses that constitute the sensible world for us, right? We have 5 senses. Or as some of us might have said, okay, we have 5 senses. Would have wanted to work inside of the booklet. Don't leave it in your head. Don't leave it in your head. Remember, you have a huge volume of information that you have to make sense of. Usually, if you see people who are professionals, what they do, people who teach this, usually the more experienced you are, the more marks you leave on the sheet of paper. The less experienced you are, the fewer marks you leave. Got it? People who are inexperienced, just read it and try to remember, things, and that's really, really not the way to go about it. Got it? So I want you guys to always work inside of the booklet. Same thing, by the way, goes for geometry questions. On geometry questions, I really want you guys to work on the drawing itself, not just leave it here. You guys have an advantage, usually including the TOEFL examination is a computer-based test. This examination is a paper-based test. Use that privilege. I'm assuming that in about 10 years, all of the examinations are going to be taken on tablets with stylus pens. No, I'm actually quite serious. Because that is the ultimate combination, if you think about it. You have computer on the one hand, and you have pen and paper on the other hand. But that's still a long way to go. Go ahead.
Why did you mark 5 senses?
Oh, I want you, while you read this, I want you to leave marks as to what you just read. I want you to remember. Don't just remember it, because that's what everybody else does. While you're reading it, it doesn't matter what your proficiency in English is, I want you to mark things. I want you to say, oh, that's important, oh, that's not important because that's only an example. I want you to say, okay, A leads to B, but I mentioned that as well yesterday. C leads to B. Yeah, I want you to leave marks, leave a trail of breadcrumbs. So?
Yeah, I'll
get to that a bit later on. So, that takes care of one of the formats that you see on the examination, and this one format is basically just 2 passages that show up simultaneously. Now, let's go back to the handout. And the handout reads, what is measured? Now, what do they measure on this examination? What do you guys think? They don't. Most people would think that they measure only, your reading comprehension. That's not true. They literally measure your reading skills alongside your comprehension skills. So again, I'll just highlight it on the page. Reading is a skill. What's a skill? Skills are miumanut. It's true that we are all different, and it's true that no 2 people have the same IQ. But if you have a good reading skill, if you have a skill, something that you can definitely develop, then you would be able to improve your score. Got it? So the question is, how do you read? Let me tell you, a quick story. I had a GRE class. For different reasons, instead of teaching them how to deal with reading comprehension passages around lesson number 3 or 4, because on the GRE it's slightly different, I taught them that on lesson number 8. I taught them, a method for dealing with reading comprehension passages on lesson number 8. And suddenly they were, oh, thank you. And I was slightly perplexed. What is perplexed? Muftah. Told them, honestly, when I teach the method, usually people don't like it. How come you people are so grateful? Why are you suddenly so enthusiastic about it? And this is what they told me, absolutely true. They told me, listen, this is lesson number 8, which means that for the past 7 lessons, you've asked us to solve reading comprehension passages, and we just did. We didn't know exactly what to do, right? So we just did whatever it is that we thought we needed to do. And it is horrible. It doesn't, all of my GRE students, by the way, are people who have a bachelor's degree and even multiple degrees, right? And their English is fantastic until they get to this examination. When you get to the GRE examination, you go like, oh man, I thought I knew English. I don't know English. Honestly, it's kind of similar to what happened to you here, right? Most people feel like, my English is good, I speak English well, and then they come to an SAT course, or, more so obviously on the GRE course. So why did I tell you this? I told you this because I know that you have your own methods and I respect those methods. However, do give this a try. Yeah, give this an honest try, do the best that you can. If, after solving 10 or 15 passages, you still feel that you don't like it, don't work with it. But give it an honest try, because if you don't, usually people mess up on these. Yeah. No, not this. I haven't mentioned it yet, but I want to,
try what? And see if we like it or not.
the MO. שיטת העבודה שאני אומר לכם. בסדר? They also want us to interpret. What is to interpret? לפרש, to apply, לרשום בבקשה, לרשום כל מילים. To apply נכון מאוד, זה ליישם, ו-to infer זה?
להודיע?
לא. להסיק. נכון, להשליך, נכון. להשליך האמת יותר דומה לליישם, to infer זה להסיק. כן. Even in English, by the way, these two words are slightly similar. Yes. What happened? You too cold? No, just turn the palette down just a little bit. So vocabulary. They also test your vocabulary, measure your vocabulary, though if you're unfamiliar with the word, you might be able to guess its meaning based on it, as usual. Break it down, listen to the sound, look at the context. Now, the passages are usually taken from academic publications, and they're edited to be sometimes more challenging, sometimes a bit less challenging in terms of vocabulary and reasoning. They deal with sciences, humanities, social sciences, either objective or biased. What is biased?
שבוע למדתי את זה.
bias.
זה שטויות, כמו ביאס, לא?
לא אמיתי, כאילו?
has a...
מוטה, exactly. משוחד. לצד זה או לצד זה.
זה כמו נטייה לחשוב למשהו.
נכון, בדיוק. I'm biased. Usually when it comes to politics, I'm economically biased. I think that, the economy affects people politically. Got it? Because let's say I'm an economist, so I'm economically biased. No general knowledge is required on these examinations. It's not an examination about your general knowledge. So bias muter or meshuchad l'dat. Now, the recommended approach. So Shachar, you also have it here written out very, very nicely in multiple stages. But I want you guys to also have a visual of what it's like, right? So please copy the visual. Listen, on this examination, let's say I have a passage, right? I have the reading comprehension passage. Let's say it's long. Then I have question number 1, question number 2, so on and so forth. Right? And question number 1, and I have here the question, and I have A, B, C, D, E. Right? And question number 2, I would like you guys to copy the visual. This is the question, and I have A, B, C, D, E. Now, as I told you earlier, and you nodded, as I told you earlier, this examination has the questions arranged in the same order of the answers. Which means what I would like you guys to do, generally speaking, is read the question. If it's a general question, what does it mean?
כללי.
Exactly, שאלה כללית. ומה זה אומר מבחינת סדר העבודה שלי? Let's say, which of the following does the passage mainly deal with? Obviously, I can't answer this question because I know nothing about the passage. So what am I going to do? Read the next question. Got it? So I'm going to be looking for the first specific question. I'm going to be looking for the first specific questions. For example, the word substantiated probably means in its context. Or why does the author mention the hypothesis in the first paragraph? So the second that I have a lock on a specific location, what I would do is I would go into the passage. So this is stage number 1. I would go into the passage. Stage number 2 is I would read, and stage number 2 is read plus summarize. Now I also mentioned that yesterday, and I mentioned it throughout my courses, GMAT, GRE, TOEFL, SATs. I always ask people, guys, when you have a certain paragraph and you want to summarize it, please do it with 1 paragraph equals 2 to 7 words. 1 paragraph equals 2 to 7 words. Gabriel, if you read a paragraph, and a paragraph usually on the SATs is anything between 10 lines to 15, sometimes even 20, but usually around there. So 15 lines, times about 8 words per line, so that's about 120 words. If you can't take about 120 words and break them down to about 1/10 of their size, or 7% of their size, that means that you didn't understand exactly what was going on. So that's what I'm asking you guys to do. While you read, you summarize it here, on the margin. בשול השמאלי בדרך כלל, אני מבקש מכם לסכם את הדברים. But summarize them, please. Don't make it too nice. You just one word here. A leads to B. Cause and effect. Cause and effect. And again, if you do that, then that means that you really understand what's going on here. So you summarize. What you can do, by the way, here that you cannot do on the TOEFL, it's not the same exact thing, is here you can work on the sheet of paper itself. So let's say I think I found the answer, and I think I found it here. What I'm going to ask you guys to do is mark a thick vertical line. Okay, so the third stage is to mark a thick vertical line. Why am I asking you guys to do that?
Where?
Let's say I read it and I go, oh, this is the answer. This is the answer. I think I got the answer. So I want you to, after you thought, in that place where you thought you got the answer, I want you to literally stop, put a XOR. XOR זה קו אנכי עבה, נכון? מחשבים? אתם משתמשים בזה?
לא, איך קוראים לזה? יודע איך עושים.
XOR? So I want you to יש אפילו חברה שקוראים, put a thick vertical line. Why am I asking you guys to put a thick vertical line inside of the text?
שאז נציב כאילו במקום אולי את התשובה.
Listen, because now I'm going to go back into stage number 4 is I'm going to go back into the answer choices. Got it? Then, let's say I answer the question correctly. Then I'm going to move on to question number 3. And then I'm going to continue reading from that thick vertical line. Got it? So I want you to leave a mark. It's so easy on this examination to lose, especially if it's not your mother tongue. It's so easy to lose track. So what I'm asking you guys to do is to mark a thick vertical line, answer the question, read the next question, and we know again that usually in the answer to the next question is going to appear after that thick vertical line. Or sometimes, hey, you think that the answer is all the way up to here, but it's not. You have to read on. And if you didn't mark exactly where you are, you're just going to lose at least a minute. Just finding your way. If you do this stupid little thing is probably going to save you about a minute per passage.
רגע, מה זה 4?
So, generally speaking, we said from the question, into the text, into the answer choices. Got it? So 4 is the answer choices. 4 בעצם את חוזרת אל אפשרויות התשובה, אל התשובות. בכוונה לא אומר answers, כן? אני אומר answer choices, זה אפשרויות תשובה.
יכול לחזור על זה?
מה? כן. בגדול, שלב מספר 1, אני אומר את זה בעברית, שלב מספר 1 זה לקרוא את השאלה הספציפית הראשונה. פסיק. אתם יודעים מה? עזבו. We have it here. Yeah, I told you that I want this. Sorry. My bad. I usually, this is good that I do that because usually I forget to do that, right? But this complements that. I want you to look at it to know what it looks like. So first of all, what you need to do is to please know this by heart and please give it a try at home, right? Make sure that use the MO. Use the reading comprehension MO that we talked about. להשתמש בבקשה בשיטת העבודה של, סליחה, פה זה לא נקרא reading comprehension, it's called critical reasoning method that we talked about.